Mother, if you cannot accept the situation, then you are free to leave. The words did not just hang in the air. They severed the very atmosphere of the room, cutting through the history of 30 years like a butcher's cleaver. My son's voice, usually a timbre I associated with warmth and safety, echoed off the walls of the hallway with a chilling finality. He was yelling at me, my Liam, my only child. The boy whose scraped knees I had bandaged, and whose college tuition I had paid for by selling my own jewelry, was looking at me with eyes that belonged to a stranger. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 62 years old, a retired nurse who spent 4 decades tending to the wounds of others, only to find the deepest wound inflicted right here, in the sanctuary of my own home. I have been a widow for 10 years, ever since my husband, Arthur, collapsed on a construction site from an aneurysm. Since then, my world has revolved around Liam, but today, standing in the hallway of the house, Arthur and I built brick by brick. Liam looked at me not as his mother, but as his enemy. I stood frozen in front of the master bedroom door, my hand still hovering near the brass knob. I had just returned from a week-long trip to visit my sister in Ohio, a rare getaway I had taken to give Liam and his wife, Chloe, some space. I had driven 6 hours to get back, my body aching with fatigue, longing for the comfort of my own mattress. Instead, I found the unthinkable. Through the open door, I saw her. Brenda, Chloe's mother, was asleep in my bed. She was sprawled across my Egyptian cotton sheets, surrounded by a fortress of her personal belongings. Her heavy perfumes cluttered my antique vanity. Her gaudy floral robes were stuffed into my walk-in closet. Pushing my clothes aside, her slippers were kicked casually against my nightstand. It wasn't just that she was using the room. She had colonized it. It looked as if she had lived there for years. And I was the intruder, stumbling upon her domain. Liam. I tried to speak, but my voice was a fragile, broken thing. What is this? No, Mom. Enough, Liam snapped, his face flushed with a mixture of anger and what I hoped was shame, though it looked dangerously like resentment. Brenda is going through a divorce. She is depressed. She needs peace. She needs space. And she needs comfort. You come in here making a scene over a simple room? A simple room. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. Liam, that is my room. That is my bed. This is my house. It is our house, he shouted, his voice rising a decibel, causing the family photos on the wall to tremble slightly. We live here. Chloe and I pay the utilities now. We buy the groceries. We have rights too, you know. We have rights too, you know. Every syllable was a physical blow. I felt the floor beneath me sway. A vertigo induced not by illness but by sheer heartbreak. She needs comfort, he continued, barreling over my silence. She is your granddaughter's other grandmother. Chloe is devastated seeing her mother suffer. And all you can do is think about yourself. You are being selfish. Selfish? I whispered, the irony burning my throat. I tried to explain. If you find it so terrible to help family, he interrupted, stepping closer, towering over me in a way that felt menacing. If you lack empathy, if your personal comfort is more important than the mental well-being of this family, then leave. Nobody is forcing you to stay. If it is so awful here with us, go. The silence that followed was deafening, heavier than the shout itself. You can leave. Those 3 words dismantled my identity. They erased me. They turned the woman who owned the deed to this property into a transient nuisance. There I was, 62 years old, staring at the man I had dedicated my life to raising. I remembered the nights I sat up with him, when he had asthma attacks as a child, monitoring his breathing until dawn. I remembered standing at Arthur's grave, holding Liam's hand, promising him that no matter what happened, we would always have this home. And now, he was evicting me for a woman he had known for 5 years. Chloe appeared in the hallway behind Liam. She was holding my granddaughter, Lily, in her arms. The 5-year-old was asleep, her cheek pressed against her mother's shoulder, blissfully unaware that her family was disintegrating. Chloe didn't say a word. She didn't offer an apology. She simply looked at me with a cold, steely expression that screamed, "Don't you dare wake her. Just go." I opened my mouth to argue, to scream, to list the sacrifices, the money, the love, but I stopped. I realized in that moment that words were useless against this level of betrayal. There are silences that weigh more than 1,000 screams. And my silence in that moment carried the weight of 30 years of unconditional love being tossed into the garbage. I bent down slowly, my joints protesting, and picked up my suitcase. I hadn't even unpacked. I was still wearing my travel coat, smelling of highway coffee and exhaustion. I gave my son one last look, searching for the boy I used to know. But I only saw a stranger with Liam's face and a heart of stone. I turned and walked down the stairs, one step at a time. Each step was a memory. Here, Arthur carried me across the threshold. Here, Liam took his first steps. Here, we sat on the bottom step and cried when we got the news of Arthur's death. I could hear Liam breathing heavily upstairs, waiting for me to turn back, to beg, to concede. But I didn't. If I turned around and saw that coldness again, I would shatter completely. I walked out the front door, the solid oak door Arthur had carved himself. I walked into the cool evening air of Oak Creek, leaving behind my home, my sanctuary, and my heart. I walked aimlessly through the quiet streets of our small town. My legs moved on autopilot, fueled by shock. Neighbors waved Mrs. Gable from her porch, old Mr. Henderson walking his dog, and I nodded mechanically. A painted smile plastered on my face to hide the devastation. I eventually reached the town square and collapsed onto a wrought iron bench. It was the same bench where Arthur used to eat his lunch, the same bench where I would watch Liam chase pigeons as a toddler. I took my phone out of my purse with trembling fingers. I dialed a number I hadn't used in years, but one I kept for emergencies. Samuel Thorne. He was Arthur's best friend and the sharpest real estate attorney in the county. "Eleanor?" His voice was rough with surprise. "Is everything all right?" "Samuel." My voice was terrifyingly calm. It was the calm of the eye of the hurricane, the vacuum before the destruction. "I need a legal notice drafted. Immediately. I have tenants in my property who need to vacate. I want to give them 24 hours. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Eleanor," he said cautiously, "are we talking about Liam and his family?" "Yes." "Are you absolutely certain?" "This is the nuclear option, Eleanor. Once you pull this trigger, you cannot unfire the bullet." I closed my eyes and saw Liam's red face again. I heard the contempt in his voice. "You can leave." "I am completely sure, Samuel. I will meet you at the Pie's office in an hour. Or, actually, meet me at the motel on Route 9. I have nowhere else to go. I'll be there." I sat on that bench as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in bruises of purple and red. Families were walking past me, heading home to dinner, to warmth, to belonging. And there I was, a woman with a suitcase and a broken heart. But what Liam didn't know, what none of them understood, was that my silence was not submission. It was tactical. He had forgotten something crucial. I wasn't just his mother. I was the owner of the house, the sole owner. There are lines you do not cross. Not even with the woman who gave you life. The motel was a sad, beige place that smelled of industrial lemon cleaner and stale cigarettes. Room 104 was a far cry from my master bedroom with its view of the garden. But it was mine. I sat on the lumpy mattress and finally let the tears come. I didn't cry for the house. I cried for the death of the relationship I thought I had. I thought back to the beginning. Liam was a miracle baby, born after 3 miscarriages. Arthur and I had poured every ounce of love we had into him. We were not rich. Arthur was a carpenter. I was a nurse. We lived in a cramped apartment for years, saving every penny in a rusty tin can hidden in the kitchen soffit. "Someday," Arthur would say, his hands rough and calloused, wrapping his arms around me, "we are going to build a castle for you and the boy." And we did. We bought a plot of land on the edge of town. It took us 4 years to build the house because we did most of the work ourselves. I mixed cement on weekends. Arthur laid the bricks after his shifts. Liam, then 7 years old, would run around the frame of the house, drawing on the subfloor with crayons. "This is my room," he would shout. "It is, son," Arthur would laugh. "It's all for you." We moved in on a sweltering July day. We had no furniture in the living room, so we ate pizza on the floor, laughing until our sides hurt. Arthur raised a paper cup of soda. "To our fortress. May nothing ever break these walls." Arthur died when Liam was 22. It broke us, but it also welded us together. Liam was my rock then. He handled the funeral. He held me when I couldn't stop shaking. He promised me he would never let me be alone. "I've got you, Mom," he had said. "I promise." That promise sustained me. I watched him graduate as an architect, beamed with pride when he got his first job, and welcomed Chloe with open arms when he brought her home. I ignored the small red flags, her subtle digs at my cooking, her complaints about the old-fashioned decor. I wanted him to be happy. When they had Lily and complained about their cramped apartment, I was the one who suggested they move in. "The house is too big for just me," I had said. "Come home. Save money. Let Lily grow up in the garden her grandfather planted." They moved in 3 years ago. At first, it was wonderful. But then, slowly, the dynamic shifted. It started with Brenda, Chloe's mother. Her visits grew longer. Her criticisms grew louder. Chloe began to treat me less like the owner of the house and more like a live-in maid. And Liam slowly stopped being my son and started being her husband. At the expense of everything else. I wiped my face. The memories were painful, but they fueled my resolve. The next morning, at exactly 8 a.m., Samuel knocked on the motel door. He held a manila envelope, his face grim. "Do you want me to deliver this alone?" "No," I said, smoothing down my skirt. "I want to see their faces." We drove in silence. The house looked beautiful in the morning light. The hydrangeas Arthur had planted were in full bloom, oblivious to the war happening inside. Samuel knocked 3 times. Firm, authoritative knocks. Chloe opened the door, holding a cup of coffee. When she saw me, her face twisted in annoyance. "Patricia? We weren't expecting you back so soon. Did you come to apologize?" "Good morning, ma'am." Samuel stepped forward, his voice a professional baritone. "I am Samuel Thorne, representing Mrs. Eleanor Vance. I am here to serve you with a legal notice." Liam appeared behind Chloe, looking disheveled and tired. When he saw me, his eyes narrowed. "Mom? What is this? You brought a lawyer?" I didn't answer. I just stood there, spine straight, channeling every ounce of dignity I possessed. Samuel handed him the envelope. "This is an eviction notice. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises." The silence that descended on the porch was absolute. Chloe dropped her mug. It shattered, dark liquid splashing onto the porch, but no one moved. Liam tore the envelope open, his hands shaking. He read the document, his face draining of color, then flushing a violent red. "Is this a joke?" His voice trembled. "You are kicking us out? Your own family?" "No," I replied, my voice steady. "I am reminding you whose house this is. Yesterday you told me to leave. You said if I didn't like it, I could go. So I went, and now, you must go." "That was different," Liam sputtered. "I was angry. I didn't mean for you to actually leave forever. I meant you needed to stop causing drama." "Drama?" I stepped closer. "You called my presence in my own home drama. You displaced me from my bed for a woman who has never contributed a dime to this household. You humiliated me. You told me my comfort didn't matter. But Mom, Do not call me Mom right now. I cut him off. You ceased to be my son the moment you treated me like a trespasser. You have 24 hours. We have a child. Chloe shrieked, finding her voice. You can't do this to Lily. Where are we supposed to go? You should have thought about that when you gave my room to your mother, I said coldly. Brenda seems to be very comfortable. Perhaps she can host you. At the mention of her name, Brenda appeared at the door, wearing my silk robe. What is all this shouting? Eleanor, really? Have you no shame? I looked her dead in the eye. Get out of my robe, Brenda. And get out of my house. You have until tomorrow morning. This is insane, Brenda scoffed. Liam, do something. She's senile. The notice is binding, Samuel interjected. If you are not out by 9 a.m. tomorrow, the sheriff will be involved to remove you for trespassing. Do not test us. Liam looked at me with a mixture of horror and disbelief. I can't believe you are doing this. Over a room? It is not about the room, Liam. It never was. It is about respect. It is about the fact that you looked at me and threw me away like trash. You chose her mother over yours. Well, now you can live with that choice. I turned on my heel. 24 hours. We walked back to the car. As we drove away, I saw Liam standing on the porch, the paper in his hand, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. Back at the motel, the adrenaline faded, leaving me hollow. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall. My phone began to ring. It was Mrs. Gable, my neighbor, then the baker, then the librarian. In a small town like Oak Creek, news travels faster than light. Eleanor, honey. Mrs. Gable's voice was warm. We saw the lawyer. We heard the shouting. Is it true? Did that boy really kick you out? Yes, I whispered. Well, you listen to me, she said fiercely. If you need a place, my guest room is ready, and don't you worry about food. I'm bringing a casserole to the motel. The whole town knows how hard you and Arthur worked for that house. We are with you. The outpouring of support was overwhelming. People I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. I realized then that while I might have lost my son, I hadn't lost my community. I wasn't alone, but the night was long. I barely slept. I kept waiting for Liam to call, to apologize, to fix it. He called at 3 a.m. Mom. His voice was thick with tears. Please. We have nowhere to go. Our old apartment is rented. Hotels are expensive. Brenda is having a panic attack. And what about my panic attacks, Liam? I asked into the dark room. What about my heart? I'm sorry. I really am. But you can't do this. I am doing it. You broke the contract of family, Liam. You assumed my love was a weakness you could exploit. You thought I would just take it because I'm your mother. You were wrong. She's my wife, Mom. I have to support her. Then go support her. Somewhere else. I hung up. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. My heart felt like it was physically ripping in two, but a small voice inside me, perhaps Arthur's voice, told me to hold the line. If I folded now, I would be a doormat for the rest of my life. The next morning, the deadline arrived. I dressed in my best suit. I put on my lipstick. I was going to reclaim my life. However, when Samuel and I arrived at the house, there were 3 cars in the driveway. Chloe's friends, and a woman I didn't recognize standing on the porch with a briefcase. Liam opened the door. He looked wrecked, but there was a new, desperate defiance in his eyes. We aren't leaving, he said. Then I'm calling the sheriff, Samuel said, reaching for his phone. Wait. The strange woman stepped forward. I am Jessica Reynolds, attorney for the Vance family. You cannot evict them. On what grounds? Samuel demanded. On the grounds of this. She held up a document. A deed of gift, signed 3 years ago, granting Liam Vance and Chloe Vance lifetime tenancy rights to the property, irrevocable without cause, and requiring a 90-day notice period. I stared at the paper. I never signed that. Your signature is right here, Chloe said, stepping out. A smug smile plastered on her face. Don't you remember, Patricia? 3 years ago? We were signing the insurance papers? You wanted us to feel secure. The memory hit me like a splash of ice water. 3 years ago, amidst a stack of insurance forms and bank transfers, they had asked me to sign for Lily's future. There had been other papers. They had rushed me. Just sign here, Mom. It's for the bank. It's for the life insurance. You tricked me, I whispered. You buried this in the paperwork. It's a legal document. Chloe shrugged. So, take your 24-hour notice and shove it. We have 90 days. And honestly, good luck getting us out then. I looked at Liam. Did you know? He looked at his shoes. It was just insurance, Mom. In case something happened to you. We didn't want to be homeless. You planned this, I said, realizing the horror of it. You planned this years ago. We protected our family. Chloe snapped. And now, since we have rights, you can't cut the power. You can't harass us. And you certainly can't kick my mother out. So, you can leave. Defeat washed over me. Samuel looked at the document, his face falling. It looks notarized, Eleanor. We can fight it, but it will take months in court. For now, they can stay. I turned to leave. My spirit crushed. I had lost. They had outsmarted me with treachery. But as I walked toward the car, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Vance, this is Monica. From next door. I need to show you something. I heard what's happening. Please come to my back porch. I told Samuel to wait. I walked around the hedge to Monica's house. Monica was a young woman, tech-savvy, who often babysat Lily. She looked pale. I shouldn't get involved, Monica said, shaking. But this is evil. Look. She handed me a stack of printed screenshots. Chloe is in a mommy group on Facebook. I'm in it too. She thinks it's private, but it's not. I read the texts, and my blood ran cold. Post from 6 months ago. The old bat is still kicking. Need to speed things up. She's clinging to the house like a limpet. Post from 2 months ago. Phase 2 initiated. Mom is coming to stay. We're going to push boundaries until she snaps. If she leaves on her own, we don't even need to use the contract. Post from last week. She's gone for a week. Mom is moving into the master bedroom. When she comes back, she'll flip. The goal is to make her blow up so Liam sees her as the aggressor. Then he'll choose me. And we get the house. Comment from a friend. What if Liam defends her? Chloe's reply. He won't. I've been working on him for years. He thinks she's controlling. He's a mama's boy. But I've got him wrapped. He'll do what I say. I stared at the papers. It wasn't just a dispute. It was a conspiracy. A slow, calculated assassination of my character and my relationship with my son. Thank you, Monica, I said, my voice trembling with a new kind of rage. You have no idea what you've just done. I walked back to my house. I didn't knock. I pushed past Samuel, past the lawyer, and stormed into the living room. Get out! Chloe screamed. We have rights! Shut up! I roared. The sound was so powerful that everyone froze. Even Brenda stopped filing her nails. I walked straight to Liam. He flinched. You think I'm the villain? My voice shaking. You think I'm controlling? You think this just happened? Look at this. I shoved the papers into his chest. What is this? Read it, Liam. Read what your wife thinks of you. Read how she talks about your mama's boy weakness. Read how she planned to make your mother explode just to steal this house. Liam looked at Chloe. She looked terrified for the first time. Don't read that, Liam. It's fake. She forged it. But Liam was reading. His eyes scanned the pages, widening with every line. He read the part about phase 2. He read the part about manipulating him. He read the insults about me. Phase 2, Liam whispered. He looked up, his face pale as a sheet. You planned this? You put your mother in her bed on purpose to make her angry. Liam, baby, I was venting. It's just online talk, Chloe cried, reaching for him. He stepped back as if she burned him. You said you had me wrapped. You said I would do whatever you said. Liam, did you marry me for me? Or for the house? He asked, his voice breaking. Of course for you. But your mother. My mother, Liam interrupted, his voice gaining strength, built this house with her bare hands. My mother sacrificed everything for me. And you plotted against her like she was an enemy combatant. He turned to Brenda. And you knew? Brenda sniffed. We were just looking out for your future, dear. Eleanor is old. She doesn't need all this space. Liam looked around the room. He looked at the lawyer, at his wife, at his mother-in-law, and then he looked at me. I saw the veil lift. I saw the years of manipulation dissolve under the harsh light of truth. He saw me. He really saw me. Get out, Liam said. Excuse me? Chloe asked. You heard my mother, Liam said, his voice hard. Get out. Both of you. Brenda. Chloe. Get out. You can't kick us out. We have the contract. Chloe shrieked. I don't care about the contract, Liam shouted, throwing the papers on the floor. I'll fight it in court. I'll prove fraud. I'll spend every dime I have to annul it. But right now, as your husband, I am telling you that we are done. If you want to save even a shred of this marriage, you will leave my mother's house immediately. Chloe stared at him. She saw a man she hadn't anticipated, a man who had finally found his spine. She burst into tears, real, ugly tears of defeat. She grabbed Lily, she grabbed her purse, and she ran out the door. Brenda followed, cursing under her breath. The house fell silent. The lawyer quietly packed her briefcase and slipped out, leaving Samuel, Liam, and me standing in the wreckage of the living room. Liam stood there, trembling. He looked at the floor, where the screenshots lay scattered. Then, he fell to his knees. He put his head in his hands and began to sob. Deep, gut-wrenching sobs of a man who realizes he has destroyed the only pure thing in his life. I'm sorry, he choked out. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. I swear I didn't see it. I looked at him. My heart was still bruised, still bleeding. Part of me wanted to stay cold, to let him suffer. But I am a mother, and a mother's love is a terrible, resilient thing. I walked over and knelt beside him. I wrapped my arms around his shaking shoulders. You were blind, Liam, I said softly, stroking his hair. But you see now. Can you ever forgive me? He asked, looking up with red, swollen eyes. I kicked you out. I betrayed you. I can forgive you, I said, but I will not forget, and things will not go back to how they were. You have to fix this. I will, he promised. I'll fix everything. It has been 6 months since that day. The legal battle over the deed of gift was short. Once Samuel presented the evidence of fraud and undue influence, and with Liam testifying against his own interest, the judge threw it out. The house is mine again. Liam and Chloe are separated. They are attending therapy, trying to see if there is anything left to salvage for Lily's sake. Chloe is living with Brenda in a small apartment across town. She is learning the hard way that manipulation is a poor foundation for a life. Liam lives in a studio apartment nearby. He comes over for dinner every Sunday. He mows the lawn. He fixed the loose step on the porch. We are rebuilding our relationship, brick by brick, just like we built this house. It is different now. There is a boundary that wasn't there before. He knows that I am not just a resource to be used. I am a person to be respected. I am sitting on my porch tonight, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight. The house is quiet, but it is a peaceful quiet, not a lonely one. I learned a lesson that I hope to pass on to Lily one day. We are taught that a mother's love must be sacrificial, that we must immolate ourselves to keep our children warm. But that is a lie. True love requires respect. You cannot love someone you treat like a doormat. By standing up for myself, by willing to lose everything, I saved the only thing that mattered, my dignity. And in doing so, I saved my son from becoming a man I would have been ashamed of. If you are listening to this, and you feel like you are disappearing in your own home, shrinking so others can expand, stop. You are the foundation. And if the foundation crumbles, the whole house falls. Stand tall. Reclaim your space. Because you can leave, yes, but you can also stay and fight.